It's Monday, July 22nd, 2024, and this is the Climate One audio newsletter. I'm producer Austin Colon.
And I'm producer Megan Basilia.
Megan, I know you've heard our new episode, but for those who haven't, check out What's at Stake in November. This November, voters may have the rare opportunity to choose between two administrations that have already each had 4 years in office. Regardless of who ends up at the top of the ticket, when it comes to climate in particular, a lot is at stake. As Biden's first term is winding down, the administration has been enacting numerous climate initiatives on top of his already robust climate wins, like new guidance on clean energy permitting and a new solar program. Meanwhile, former President Trump has promised to, quote, drill baby drill on day one and roll back as much of Biden's landmark climate legislation as possible. This week, we take a look back at how both administrations handled climate issues, the effects of those choices, and what they promise to do if given another term in the White House. You can find it now on our website, climateone.org, or wherever you get your pods.
And we're not only on the airwaves and the internets. We have a few live events coming up with some very exciting guests, so pull up your calendars right now. The first one is August 27th at 6 p.m. at the Commonwealth Club, featuring the billionaire investor and climate organizer, Tom Steyer. He'll be in conversation with Climate One host Greg Dalton, and they'll talk about politics, money, and power. That's Tuesday, August 27th. Then, on September 16th at 6 p.m., environmental icon Jane Goodall returns to Climate One to reflect back on her life's work. She'll also talk about how we can heal our relationship with nature by better understanding ourselves. She'll be joined by Greg and Rhett Butler, founder of the nonprofit media organization Manga Bay. That's at the Sidney Goldstein Theater on Monday, September 16th.
And that same week, on Wednesday, we'll be joined by Justin Pearson. You might know Justin as one of the legislators who was kicked out of the Tennessee House for protesting in support of common sense gun regulation. He's also a strong advocate for climate and environmental justice. The Sierra Club recognized him as the 2023 National Changemaker of the Year. And he'll talk about all that with Greg at the Commonwealth Club. That's Wednesday, September 18th.
Tickets for all of these events can be purchased at climateone.org.
All right, and here's what we're reading this week. Trump selects oil and gas supporter as running mate. Former President Donald Trump announced that Senator JD Vance, Republican from Ohio, is his nominee for vice president at this week's Republican National Convention. A venture capitalist with strong ties to the oil and gas industries, Vance has questioned whether humans contribute to climate change at all, and he's advocated for the repeal of the Inflation Reduction Act and called for dramatic expansion of Ohio's fracking infrastructure. Vance was not always such a staunch opponent of climate action. As recently as 2020, Vance gave a speech at Ohio State University where he highlighted our climate problem and the risk posed by relying on gas for heat and electricity. But the oil and gas industry contributed at least $283,000 to Vance's 2022 Senate campaign. That made him one of the largest recipients of fossil fuel contributions among all members of Congress. And then, the Ohio senator embraced non-renewable energy. Vance's opposition to the Inflation Reduction Act also clashes with his stated goals of improving the lives of Ohioans. The landmark climate legislation invests an estimated $12.8 billion in Ohio-based clean energy funding, and so far nearly 3,000 jobs have been created in the state due to IRA funding. One particularly striking example is the $500 million allocated towards decarbonizing the steel plant in Middletown, Vance's hometown and the focus of his novel Hillbilly Elegy.
Wild times indeed. Anyway, here's what else we're reading. San Francisco launches world's first commercial hydrogen ferry. From ABC News, the Key Largo tree cactus is the first U.S. species to become extinct due to rising sea levels. From Vox, the U.S. is failing renters during extreme heat waves. From the New York Times, at the Republican National Convention, climate change isn't a problem. Those were the headlines, and we know that climate change actually is a problem, and there are lots of people around the planet working really hard to make things better. Is there an outstanding climate communicator in your life? Nominations are now open for Climate One's annual Stephen H. Schneider Award for Outstanding Climate Science Communication. Anyone can submit a name for consideration, regardless of whether you personally work in the climate field. Past winners include Katharine Hayhoe, Robert Bullard, Ben Santer, and Naomi Oreskes. Complete criteria for the award is available on our website, climateone.org. Submissions are now open through July 31st.
Okay, now let's connect the dots. Nuclear energy is an increasingly rare example of an issue with bipartisan support. Earlier this month, Congress passed the Advance Act with near unanimous approval. The new law streamlines the reactor permitting approval process and allocates additional resources to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, or NRC, the federal body responsible for overseeing the nuclear industry. But some scientists and climate activists have raised concerns about the Advance Act, saying it caters to nuclear energy companies at the expense of the environment and hampers the NRC's ability to regulate. What does the future of this complicated energy sector look like? Climate One spoke with 3 nuclear insiders to find out, and you can find that episode in our pod feed under the title, The Nuclear Option.
One more thing. We're working on an episode about how unions across the country in all sorts of industries are working to protect people on the job from extreme heat and other climate impacts. Do you work outdoors, in a kitchen or a warehouse, or somewhere else where you're feeling the heat? Have rising temperatures impacted the way you work? We want to hear your story. Please send us an email at climateone@commonwealthclub.org or leave us a voicemail at 650-382-3869 and let us know how climate change is affecting you on the job, and we may use it in an upcoming episode. Thanks for sharing. And that's it for this week's Climate One audio newsletter.
Thanks for listening.